Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, not joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. I am joined by a special guest. I should say arch nemesis at this point, rival. I don't know. It is Nate Atkins, my brother from another, joining us on the podcast because he now covers the Rams for the Athletics. So, Nate, welcome to the show.
I know. I'm glad to be making my debut now that we are coworkers again for the second time. We got hired the same day at Indy Star, and then you left after like 5 minutes, and then I was there for, as we were on the same beat for whatever that was, 3 seasons, two seasons, 3 seasons. That's right. Sometimes I forget 2022 for some reason, but it was 3 seasons, and here we are. We're teammates again.
There you go.
Colts-Rams.
Well, obviously, I will certainly forget 2022 with you as well, because that was my first year on the beat, and boy, was it a first year. It was crazy. And honestly, right now, Nate, it's crazy in Indianapolis for all the right reasons. And so I know you've been busy getting acclimated to LA and your team, which is a perennially good team in the NFL, and the LA Rams. But from a distance and from someone who covered this team, covered all of the quarterback drama the last few years, even leading up to the eventual naming of Daniel Jones being QB1, what has been your impression of Daniel Jones playing at, dare I say, an MVP level?
I know. Nice of the Colts to get good the second I leave. I got there and spent, parts of 4 seasons, and those were the 4 they missed the playoffs. And now they look like a playoff team again. Not only are they 3-0, the Texans are 0-3. So that's a shocking development, but a very cool one for the people in Indianapolis. They've been waiting for this, obviously. And it goes to show kind of a little, I am surprised, certainly, that they're 3-0 and that Daniel Jones is playing the way he is. But like, I remember going into last year, coming off that 2023 season, Shane Steichen's first season, and I was pretty high on the offense. Now, I thought the secondary would hold them back, but I thought that offense had the chance to be a top 10, maybe even top 5 offense. Of course, we're thinking about it with Anthony Richardson, but because of just a lot of the pieces that could come together with their wide receivers, with Jonathan Taylor, with the investments they have in the offensive line, and then with Shane Steichen's creativity, and it just never got there between injuries to Jonathan Taylor, everything else that went down with the quarterback position. And so coming into this year, I remember, because I was there for the full training camp, we certainly didn't have that feel that this was like a high upside group. It was more, we were talking about if Daniel Jones ends up being the starter, that's more of like a move for the floor to kind of get this more to maybe what Gardner Minshew did a couple years ago. But that was really focused so much on Daniel Jones. But it goes to show that if they get good to stable quarterback play, and right now they're getting better than that, but even good quarterback play, like this can be a very good offense because everything else is fitting. And the big thing that's new that had never been there when I was there is Tyler Warren. And I remember that's why that felt like such a perfect fit in the draft, is that it was a mix of a player who is so unique in that he can block and catch and move all these different positions, line up at the backfield, line up out wide, line up inline tight end, slot, all that. And the fact that he's improving what was honestly probably the worst position group I've ever covered was last year's Colts tight end.
Well, it was pretty bad. And, it was tough.
But no one could have quite seen him taking this job by storm quite the way he has. It's all just kind of combined, it seems, between Tyler Warren hitting the ground running with Daniel Jones playing the best he's ever played, and then all that other stuff that we used to talk up that felt like it was dragged down by the quarterback instability now has a chance to shine. So I'm curious to see how it develops and sustains. Like, I feel like that's going to be the national narrative with the Colts for a long time is how real is this? Is there another shoe that's going to drop here? There's comparisons people have made to the Saints. I think it was last year when they came
Yep.
out the first two games and just
Hmm.
dropped bombs on everyone, and then it all regressed. It's been 3 games so far, and I think you have to feel certainly encouraged. But this week against the Rams, I think is going to be one of the better tests of going on the road and facing a really good pass rush. And if they can, certainly if they beat this team and they go to 4-0, that's going to be a big, legitimizing statement. But even if they're very competitive, if they're right there, and if especially if their offense and Daniel Jones still look pretty good, I think that's going to go a long way to showing you that this could be pretty real.
Absolutely. And when you talk about real, I think, like you said, the jury's still out to a degree on Daniel Jones, this offense, this overall team, because they've beaten teams, quite frankly, that have a combined record of 1-8 through their first 3 weeks. Like, that's not good competition, but also to credit the Colts, you beat down bad competition. And so they really, beat down the Dolphins. They beat down the Titans. And Nate, you were here last year. Every win they had, all 8 of them were by one possession. Like, they never really had these gaps in scoring and just these dominant performances where you looked out there and said, oh, that is a completely different and better team. Now, the one area of the offense that we all knew previously, because you knew it better than I did, because you covered the team before I did, 2021, JT goes off. He is the league rushing leader. He establishes himself as a top 5 running back in this league. Then the injuries pile up and things of that nature. Now, granted, we don't know how healthy he's going to be this year. 3 games in, I'm knocking on some wood here for those listening. But he's on a different level as well, which is shocking to me because, again, a first team All Pro, usually you don't get better from there. But I think he is. And so when you look at what the Rams have in store for him, what they did against Saquon Barkley, what challenges could JT possibly face, knowing that the Rams, after having Saquon run wild last year in the divisional round, they had something in store for him last week, had him on the ropes. I would expect that same sort of game plan this time around for JT, considering that he's entering this week with 338 rushing yards, back-to-back AFC Offensive Player of the Week honors, and he's the league's leading rusher so far.
Yeah, I actually asked the Rams defense coordinator Chris Shula that today. Like, is this the same challenge, Saquon to Jonathan Taylor? And he said yes. Like, they're that same level of runner, and that's kind of how I've always viewed JT. I thought the 2 best runners in football right now are Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. And you could maybe put Derrick Henry up there, but I think maybe a couple years ago it was a better argument for him. For Jonathan Taylor, though, it seems like they're actually doing the thing that Shane Steichen came in and said they were going to do, but didn't ever always get to, which is throw to score, run to win. And when he couldn't get the passing game going last year for all those reasons, but now that it is, Jonathan Taylor's going nuts in the fourth quarter and nuts when they've got to separate in those games. And so last week against Saquon Barkley, the Rams, they were able to get it in an opposite place where they were the ones up 26-7. And so then the Eagles are throwing a lot, and that was a part of it. But they did have a great plan for Saquon where they're able to, like last year, what happened is they just thought, we're facing Saquon Barkley, we got to stack the box. And then what happened is you give Saquon, he makes one guy miss in that box, and then there's one safety back to try and chase him all over the field. And they realized that was a disastrous plan, but they had to make the players better up front. So they go out and they get Poona Ford as a defensive tackle. They get Nate Landman as a linebacker, and they didn't stack the box this time. And it really, really worked. And their whole focus was shut down Saquon Barkley. I think it kind of maybe hurt them a little bit in the second half because the Eagles were able to get the ball to the perimeter to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith that way. But I think they're going to do the same thing here. They're going to say basically, if Daniel Jones wants to keep doing this, if we can take away a lot of his run game, we will take our odds there. We will see if he can sustain and do this. And so I think they're going to have the exact same plan where they're not going to stack the box all that much. They're going to keep layers and levels to the defense, and they're going to trust these new investments like Nate Landman, the linebacker, and Poona Ford, the defensive tackle, to win some of these matchups. And it's gonna be a fun battle because I think the Rams really want to get to a spot where Daniel Jones is dropping back in the second half, in the fourth quarter, kind of those winning time moments for their pass rush to be able to make a play. They don't want to have Jonathan Taylor running downhill at them, and especially not if he's protecting a lead. So the Rams, they look a lot better on run defense this year than last year. It was a major hole. It was the whole focus of their offseason. It's been 3 games though, and it's the one difference is that Saquon has not gotten going in any game really so far. He's under 3.5 yards a carry. So even though we know he's electric, their offense hadn't done it yet this year. The Colts offense is doing it, where Jonathan Taylor has more rushing yards than 17 other teams. And so if they can do it this week,
That's
it's the
nuts.
same thing.
17 other teams is nuts.
No, the same thing we talk about. Like if the Colts can show up, they'll legitimize some things about them. If the Rams can do this a second straight week in the run defense, that'll legitimize that everything they put their offseason focus into is actually working. And this is about as good of a test as it gets.
Absolutely. And to kind of piggyback off the JT conversation, Nate, what stood out to me is the fact that they haven't had to take him off the field. And I know that in the past, in 2021, I want to say he played like 80% of the snaps so far this year. He's 81%. But in 2021, it was like a different version of JT. I think this version is a little bit better, mainly because it's not a liability on third down to keep him in anymore, at least early on. Like his pass blocking, Nate, going back through the tape, I'm now a tape guru these days. You know, I'm trying to elevate my coverage skills a little bit. He was really good against the Broncos, and I wonder how that could look against the Rams defense that, again, like you said, they might not, stack the box or they might not blitz as much as like Miami did that first game, but they're going to send pressure at some point. And what does that look like? Can you still pick it up? Can you still, give Daniel Jones enough time to trust his offensive line? And on top of that, he's been pretty good receiving the ball as well. Went and looked it up. And here's a spoiler alert for those listening to this podcast a day before my story comes out. JT had 0 third and fourth down catches last year. 0. He's already got 3 this year, and one of them was a 43-yarder against, last week, and that win last week. And I want to say he was like the fastest ball carrier of anybody when he was able to get that done. Or actually, I'm sorry, not last week against the Titans, but the week before against Denver, he had like a wheel route out of the backfield, and he got up to maybe 22 miles an hour. And I was thinking to myself, wow, like this looks different. Now, I do have to pivot, though, because it isn't just about how well the Colts offense is. I think their defense will have some challenges as well. We know that Kenny Moore most likely will not play. He's dealing with an Achilles injury. We know that Laiatu Latu's had a pretty quiet year so far. We don't know, what he's going to look like. DeForest Buckner missed practice yesterday, limited today with a back injury. Yes, we know DeForest does what he does, but it's a factor, something to consider. So all of that in mind, you being reunited in a way with Matthew Stafford, what challenges does he present for this Colts defense? And particularly in that secondary where I think they're really going to miss Kenny Moore. Yes, they got Mike Hilton. He sounds like he's going to play, but considering that your secondary could be Mike Hilton, Xavier Howard, and Charvarius Ward, that's not what you would have hoped for going into this season.
Yeah, these are 2 teams that are combined 5-1, 2 of the better teams, but they do both have a weakness that kind of matches up in this game, which is the Colts pass rush has not really gotten going, especially on the edges so far. And the Rams pass protection has been pretty terrible. Now they should get a starting left guard back, and Steve Avila. He's practiced 2 days, so it should get a little bit better, but it hasn't been great so far. So really everything for the Rams is about, can they win enough up front to give Stafford time to work? Because right now, when he has that time, he's really dialing it up. The thing about Stafford is the one I covered in Detroit would stand in there and take some of the most vicious hits to be able to launch the ball down the field. He'd scramble around. This one knows that he's 37 and dealing with a back issue, and he's throwing the ball before you can really touch him. That's why the sack numbers are down, even though the pass protection's not been all that good. So if they can give him time, that's going to be the way that the Rams need to try to win this game, is that if they're going up against, Xavier Howard and Mike Hilton, that's really key, because I expect that Charvarius Ward's going to be on an island with Devontae Adams. That's pretty much what every team has done, because Devontae is just so good in man coverage or against man coverage. And so if you're going to run that, you need to travel your best guy with him. It's let Puka Nacua be number 1 in the NFL in basically everything, because he's got that opposite side matchup, but they also motion him into the slot. And they just keep giving him these good matchups. And when teams go into zone, he just has such a good chemistry with Matthew Stafford. And so when they can get Puka lined up against Mike Hilton or Xavier Howard, they're going to take that every day of the week. But again, if Stafford's got to have time to get there. Is in the first half last week, he had tons of time, and then second half, the interior pressure made that a little difficult. So that's where I'm curious to see how much DeForest Buckner has, because it helps the Rams that they're getting a left guard back, but he hasn't practiced much, hasn't played in 2 weeks, and overall they're just not. It's not going to be their strength. And so if they can hold up on DeForest Buckner, I think they'll hold up overall and give him time. And that's going to be the key, though, is like, can Leatu Latu get going this week? Interesting battle between Leatu Latu and Jared Verse, 2 first-round.
Absolutely. I was going to bring him up. Yeah.
The Colts chose Latu over Jared Verse. So it's sort of like, so far Jared Verse he's the reigning defensive rookie of the year. It's like, does Latu have kind of his big moment in him against, he's going to go up against the right tackle, Rob Havenstein, who's missed 2 days of practice. He's got an ankle injury. He's getting a little bit older and didn't play the best last week either. So there will be some opportunities for the Colts pass rush. But if they can't get through, that's going to be a good advantage for Stafford and Adams and Nakua, especially being back home, because I think it was a little bit of the crowd noise and the momentum shift in Philly kind of threw them out of whack a little bit in the second half. But when they're at home and they're in their comfortable space and Stafford's protected, it's really hard to stop.
One thing I do want to pick your brain about a little bit when it comes to Stafford, and we were able to ask Shane Steichen about this week, playing on schedule. Like, we have promoted so much about quarterbacks playing off schedule, and I do think that it's a trait that we're going to see more of as the game evolves. Like, I don't know how many quarterbacks we're going to see come out and be the next Matthew Stafford versus being the next, dual threat type of quarterback. But what was it like transitioning from covering, so many different quarterbacks in Indianapolis to covering a guy where, everyone in the building recognizes he's the guy. And obviously, given his resume, he's done it so long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really felt that after Sunday, because I figured there'd just be more frustration from the Rams for the way they let that game go and the mistakes they made and losing again to the Eagles. But their attitude is very much like, well, we already know we're going to play them again. And that's confidence of the team overall. But I think it really goes back to the quarterback. It's like, that's the big difference I've seen covering Stafford in 2 places, and then all the instability at quarterback in Indianapolis, is that Indy never had that blend. Well, I was there. They never had that blend of the leader and the player at quarterback who was in it playing consistently and was the guy. The closest they got to that in my time there was Gardner Minshew, who was not named the guy. He was the backup stepping in for another guy they named to be the starter, and played fairly well, but it wasn't the feel that, like, we've got a dude that's always going to keep us on schedule. And you've got to feel that on a day-to-day basis here, play-to-play basis. They just feel like that's why everything they're doing is about keeping him out there. They're having him throw quick. They're having him throw the ball away. They're accepting 2nd and 10 rather than have him try and play off schedule to make another pass. And then they're running a lot more 12 personnel, which Sean McVay resisted for like his entire life until this year, because now they're seeing that as a way to keep him protected. So it is a huge difference when you have that consistency and that belief at quarterback. And I think that's probably a big reason for the strong vibes in Indy. Is it's not just being 3-0, it's being 3-0 with a quarterback making a lot of winning plays, and no longer right now having the questions of, is he going to be benched? Is he our starter? Like, Daniel Jones is their starter. So they're starting to get there a little bit. The Rams have been there ever since they went out and got Matthew Stafford, and it's let them just kind of shake off an early season loss and keep going and not really feel the effects of it.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. FamousCigars.com/Cam.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing. Like you say, early season loss. I'm like, the Colts haven't lost yet. So on one hand, I'm curious, Nate, to see what happens when they do lose a game and how do you respond to that. But also, if they go out to LA and they win this game at the Rams, like how much more confidence does that give this group? Because right now, there's been a lot of boxes checked that you know full and well they hadn't checked in so long. I mean, they hadn't won a season opener since 2013. They hadn't started, 3-0 since 2009. They were able to win a close game, it felt like, and have some things go their way versus them crumbling under the pressure. Now, I get it. The Denver game, trust me, brother, I was thinking to myself, Shane, you almost blew this. Like I had the column ready to say, what the heck are you doing? Why do you settle for a 60-yard field goal with the kicker who's never made a kick from that distance in the NFL? They got bailed out, but by a good call, the leverage call on the Denver Broncos player, just a dumb penalty. Like, why be that aggressive on a 60-yard field goal attempt? But nevertheless, they're 3-0 and probably 3-0, but it counts all the same. And so to pivot back to the quarterback a little bit, I think, or actually, I'll ask you your reaction. When I tell you Daniel Jones is number 1 in the NFL for quarterbacks in EPA per play, what is your reaction to that? Knowing that the knock on him, and the reason why I'll admit I was advocating for Anthony Richardson, hey, this guy should have been starting. You invested in him. And I still think to a degree, and I've had listeners get on me about this, and you know how it is. You give an opinion before the things happen. Everyone wants you to eat crow, right? And I was eating a lot of crow last week. Shout out to Illinois football, trash. But getting back to the point, I think that there is a little big egg still there because Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, they're not absolved of drafting Anthony Richardson and saying he could be the guy repeatedly and then pulling the plug on that. However, to pivot and pivot this well and have Daniel Jones playing at this level, first in EPA per play, meaning that he's not being the dink and dunk Daniel we've known. What is your reaction to that? And the fact that it, again, it wasn't one game, it's been 3 games, and he's running historically through 3 games, the best Colts offense ever. That includes the Peyton Manning years.
Well, I got to say, I'm a little surprised not to see an IU football shirt out of you, but I guess you paid your dues this week already. So.
No, you know what? I've been taking and this isn't a visual podcast, so when I upload, they won't see this. But Nate, real talk, the reason why I haven't worn the shirt all day, I've worn the same IU shirt for like 3 or 4 days in a row. And I'm like, man, if I wear this all day to practice, to go to the store, I'm like, it's going to be stinky by the end of the week. So I've been wearing it for the 3 hours on the show, but I might have something cooked up for tomorrow. So I'll just say that for 107.5 The Fan. But,
there we go.
But getting back to that, man, just your reaction to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking. I will say, like, what it really shows me is 2 things. Number one is that Shane Steichen's still really, really good with quarterbacks. And right now there's only one that you could say he hasn't worked with. And in like a large sample, it didn't really work with Flacco last year either, but in a larger sample, it hasn't worked with Anthony Richardson, but it's worked with Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew and now Daniel Jones. And some of those are really talented and some of those were backups the rest of the league didn't want to be a starter. And it's working with every single guy. It also shows me that the New York Giants are pretty bad. That this looks this much different and not after very much of a time off from that. The thing with Daniel Jones is that where I was pretty hard on Daniel Jones and the idea of that is like just the ultimate kind of physical skill set and upside that he brought is that, his rookie year, he was doing a lot of the playmaking. He was scrambling a lot. He was going down the field and he produced pretty well. It was a pretty good overall rookie season, but he turned the ball over a lot. And it seemed like the Giants, their big focus was to bring him back to why they drafted him, which was to be more this stable sort of face of the franchise in structure player. And they got a lot more of that out of him, but they took away a lot of the willingness to go down the field. And whether it's yards per attempt, other downfield numbers, he just didn't do it for such a long stretch that I wondered, can you just pull that back out of your bag? But maybe sitting down for half a season with Kevin O'Connell, I think probably helped with that. And then Shane Steichen has found a way to marry the two, where he is that operational quarterback that you know is going to run the play and get you in the right plays and all that, but he's also willing to go down the field. And that's fitting the way that they built this offense with Alec Pierce down the field, but a lot of weapons to distribute to based on what the coverage is. And so give a lot of credit to Shane for just getting back to the kind of like, if you think about Shane, I think the big takeaway I have with him with quarterbacks is that he is a quarterback elevator. He can take what they are, what they've shown, what they've done, pull out the best parts and minimize the worst parts of what they've already kind of built to themselves. I think where Shane needs to maybe grow in what he has not proven is like developing a quarterback who doesn't have any of that, who has all the raw skills. That was the issue with Anthony Richardson, figuring out the path for him. And ultimately, looking back, I think it just shows that what Chris Ballard has mostly said is feels more true now, is that they just shouldn't have started Anthony as early as they did, because what Shane is used to is a guy being already ready to handle a lot of these concepts and know who he is and who he's not. And Anthony wasn't there at all. And like the expectation ramped too quickly with Anthony Richardson, but with Daniel Jones, it kind of fit a nice moment where Daniel knows this was going to be his last chance. If he got out here and he flamed out here after he flamed out in New York, he was going to be probably a career backup. But if he was able to use this 1 year opportunity to kind of get back to the confidence of his rookie year with some of the things he's learned through 69 career starts, he could be on that path that Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield have taken. And we're now seeing that like that's happening with a lot of guys. And it just shows you that like environment is everything for quarterbacks. The Giants had a terrible one, and the Colts right now have found themselves with a very good one. And so it's not a great look for Anthony Richardson that he's been the one that's not lived up to that. But I also think it shows the difference between how Shane works with either veteran quarterbacks or guys that just had a lot of like college experience, like Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, these guys who kind of came in as a face of the franchise already, and now they're at a new level. I'll be interested to see how he ever goes back to developing a quarterback, but maybe now he doesn't need to. Maybe they found the one that they're going to stick with. And right now, I mean, I still have questions about how high the upside of any team is in the AFC that doesn't have a monster at quarterback. And that's not a knock on Daniel Jones so much as a credit to Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. The bar is that high. Whereas here in the NFC, when we talk about the Rams, the model is so much different where there just aren't those kind of established superstar type players. But what the Colts really needed, the first step was to find consistency and just a guy they can believe in on some level, like maybe not superstar level, but something to move themselves forward. And 3 games in, it seems like they have that.
Brother, I'm already getting the bronze cut out, for the statue outside of Lucas Oil Stadium for Daniel Jones. At least that's what the fans want me to do, right? So I know you said you still have some questions. I have 2 questions for you before I get into life in LA. 2 quick ones. And I'm going to put you on the spot because I will not get this opportunity again this season unless we're talking about Super Bowl matchup here or something like that. However, will Daniel Jones get an extension from the Colts at the end of this season? And will the Colts make the playoffs?
Yes to both questions.
Okay.
Because I think right now the Colts are 3-0. And what is it? 75% of teams that start 3-0 make the playoffs. So there's a quarter chance that they don't. But the division they're in has the 2-time reigning division champs at 0-3. And the Texans, they don't look like a team that's just had unlucky bounces.
You saw them up close.
The Texans have not scored a red zone touchdown this year.
That's
not a single one. Like their offense is a disaster, and I've just heard from people in Houston it's not going great behind the scenes either. So it doesn't feel like a team that is ready to surge. And I just don't really believe in the Titans are dead, and the Jaguars, I'm just not sure I believe in that. So I think the Colts will win the AFC South. And if they win the AFC South and it comes with a pretty good year from Daniel Jones, not only will they feel like they've found some stability at quarterback, but they will not be in a position to really go get the next guy because they're, if they go 10-7, 11-6, something like that, they're picking at the back end of the first round. And not only that, but there are multiple teams with multiple firsts that are going to go after quarterbacks. One of them is the one I'm covering. The Rams have two firsts, the Browns have two firsts, and then there's going to be bad teams at the top that need quarterbacks too. I just don't really see Chris Ballard's never traded up in the first. I don't think that's going to be what he wants to do. Instead, I think he laid out what the hope is right now before the season, which is they want Daniel Jones to be Alex Smith, whereas he settles down a franchise and makes them a perennial playoff team like Alex Smith did in Kansas City and buys everybody time to eventually find that window to move up. And but I also think that if they're going to give this more than 1 year to really reach the conclusion that Daniel Jones is just that guy that gets you the playoffs and not any further. Like that happened several years for Alex Smith in Kansas City before they decided, hey, we've hit our absolute limit with this guy. Let's go get another one. I think if they go 10-7, if they win the AFC South like I think they're going to, I think that's gonna bring Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen back, and that's going to let that'll just get buy them the time to let this play out a little bit more to both see what the ceiling is of Daniel Jones, but also find the moment in a draft to trade up or maybe take a guy that does happen to fall a little bit. But the statue, like, are they going to build it in bronze or are they going to build it in silver for Danny Dimes?
Ah, I like that. I do like that. That was a good little pull right there. I must say though, it has been a bit shocking, but for all the right reasons, at least for the Colts, they bet on bringing him in and feeling like he could help them stabilize their franchise. But my only, not pushback to what you said, but my pushback to people who keep saying like Anthony Richardson is still the future here, and mainly Chris Ballard, the biggest voice saying that. The problem with that to me is two things. One, Daniel Jones is only 28. Like he's not 33. Like if the guy feels like he can play football and he's good for you, he's not looking over his shoulder at retirement. And then when it comes to Anthony, he has to decide if he wants his future to continue in Indianapolis. And do you want a new scene? Do you want, because sometimes, hey, they could want the best for you, but a change of scenery could be good for you, like we've seen with other quarterbacks. So something to keep in mind that we won't get the answer to just yet. But now I get to the most fun part of the episode. For the man who had never stepped foot in California before moving there for a job, how has it been in LA? And I'm seeing the tan. You're still not as dark as me. You got some, catching up to do. But what's it been like for you? And just from a life standpoint, have you had that moment to be like, man, like I'm actually doing this?
Well, give me 3 more days on the tan and maybe I can catch up. I'm not just here for the game. I'm working on it, but it's been a fun transition. It's been kind of wild. It's crazy. I think it's only been 3 weeks because it feels longer than that with having done 2 road trips and 3 games already. But also it's felt shorter than that because everything's for me has kind of been the Rams beat. So I'm living north of LA right now, and their facility is north of LA, and so it's just kind of back and forth on this northern highway for the most part. I've only been to SoFi Stadium once, and I've not really been downtown. So that's maybe something you and I'll have to check out on Saturday when you're in town, so I can, finally feel like I know a little bit of the place here.
For sure.
But it has been fun and different for someone who lived every year of his life in the Midwest. The time zone has been an adjustment to seeing. I'm going to watch USC and your Illini at 9 a.m. on Saturday.
That's crazy.
So that's very strange. But it is nice when the primetime games come on and you can watch those and still meet somebody for dinner. And so it's turning me into more of a morning person because all my friends and family are on Eastern time zone. So that part's been different. But it's a lot of things you hear about this area. Like the food is great. I went I think 2 weeks here before I saw my first cloud. So that was very cool. And the people are just they're relaxed. But there's people who grew up here, but there's a lot of people like me who are come from different places. And like LA just at some point became the next adventure for them, which is ultimately what brought me out here as someone who had thought over that a lot. I loved it. I love my time in Indy and covering the Colts and being close to family. But to me, it was just a time to try something bold and different and to be always able to say that I tried that. And I've just met so many people out here who have that exact kind of mindset, that exact kind of story. A lot of high achievers and dreamers out here. And, there can be good and bad with some of that. There is a little bit of the keeping up with the Joneses feel to some of it, but also it is kind of inspiring to be around people who are trying, willing to take bets on their lives and change in some way. So I'll always love the Midwest, and I always one of the things I thought through that brought me out here is I can always come back home, and so someday that might happen for me. But for right now, LA's home, and I just gotta work on the tan and learn some places downtown and start to fit in a little bit better. Eventually get to the beach. I haven't even been to the beach yet, but I'll get there in time. So we're just starting this crazy journey.
I'll give you some grace. For those who don't know, when you join the Athletic, you get a million Slack messages. So you're probably still knee deep in a bunch of different channels in that app that I have learned to love because you have to, because it's part of your job. The last thing I will ask, would you like to apologize to the city of Indianapolis? Because on your way out, I believe you said it was always your goal to get back to a major city. And people around here were not feeling too kind about that, Nate. And as a resident Hoosier now, I can say that. I don't know if I can, being an Illinois guy who picked, Illinois to whoop Indiana. But nevertheless, would you like to apologize to my city?
Well, you are a resident Hoosier now because you will show up to work every single day wearing IU stuff. I think you just continue that forever, and you'll fit in nicely. I think you started a nice new trend for yourself. Yeah. Honestly, you're talking to a guy that, like, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up an hour south in a small college town, and I've lived in Chicago, Detroit, and Indianapolis and Columbus. And so I love all those places for what they've been. I love to come back to them. My thing was that, my first job out of college was Chicago, and that was a blend of the Midwest, but it was also just a massive city with massive opportunities and a lot of transplants and people in different spots. And I just kind of like the way that I learn and grow in that. So to me, it was just sort of, I wanted to be able to say that I got to another city like Chicago. Like, I looked at New York for a while. That's very hard to break into. LA ended up coming up on my radar just, a couple months ago. And so to me, it was a chance to be able to do it and say that I did it. Whereas, like, you don't have forever to be able to do stuff like that. That's what a lot of people told me when I was considering this job, is like, there's not so many people who can just uproot and try something big and massive and crazy like LA.
Yeah.
It's like, I hopefully will have many years in this earth, and I can always come back to a place like Indy or Cleveland or Columbus, one of those Midwestern cities that I still love, that are very much cities. Like, there's a lot of fun times that we had in Indy and still can have. It was great.
Yeah. Don't take this too serious. I'm just joking here. Yeah, I'm not.
It was a little. Yeah, I just want to set the record straight. That it was not meant as a dig so much as saying it's time for something different. And I think, like, my favorite time in my life was college, but that was 4 years, and it was time to try something different. And so, I'll let you wear the Hoosier shirts right now, and then, maybe in 20 years I'll come back and I'll wear them, and then I'll be there.
Yeah, Nate, I'm down bad, man. I don't think I'll ever cheer for my alma mater ever again after that type of performance. But glad that you joined the pod. Obviously, miss having you around, as far as just, I'm not gonna be honest with you, man. Every now and then there's a game coming on, I'm like, dang, I can't hit my boy up and watch the game. But I'm excited for you, proud of you, obviously. View you as family, you know that. So I'll see you soon. And as far as this game goes, we'll see how it all plays out. A lot at stake, I think, for both franchises. It is early. I don't want to make it seem like it's so much bigger than what it is. But again, just a different realm for this Colts team that we've seen in a long, long time. And so we'll see if Danny Dimes can, make some change out there in LA. So for those listening to the James Boyd podcast, thanks for tuning in this week. We'll have another episode for you after this game. And until next time, my friends.
Some things in life are just made for each other. Peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo and college football. College football season is Modelo season, and the season has officially kicked off. The Modelo Recruiter is back in action, looking to reward full-time fans who give their all for their team and their school, week in and week out. If you're listening to this, you've been recruited. So lace them up and get out there. And don't forget to make time for a well-deserved ice-cold reward. Because college football wouldn't be the same without you. So grab yourself a Modelo and enjoy the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff, Modelo.